Let's get started with some ACT prep. This is just going to be the basic overview of what the test looks like, what the formatting is like, and any tips and strategies and resources that you can potentially use. So, first, let's start with some of the basics. What is an ACT web account and why do you need one? Well, you need to make an ACT account at actstudent.org to register to take the ACT, and then after you've taken that ACT to be able to view your scores. Usually students tend to take the ACT either their junior or senior year, but it is recommended that you start earlier. So the more experience you have, the better. I would recommend sophomore year as a good start. What do you need to bring with you? You definitely need a photo ID. A driver's license is great, and your printed ACT ticket, which you will receive after you register for it online at the website. The ACT usually starts at 8 a.m. Depending on it's just on a case-to-case basis. But you should plan to get there around 7:30 so that you have extra time, you're not rushing, you're not pressured. The big picture here is the test is scored from 0 to 36, with 36 being the highest score. There are 4 different sections and a fifth one which is optional. So we have English, math, reading, science, and then the writing is optional, and they're always in that order. It is a total of 215 questions, which should take about 3 hours without the writing and about 3.5 hours with the optional writing. Now, the writing is optional because some universities require that you submit your writing score, while others do not require any writing, so it just depends on where you're applying. So you should look ahead of time, and if your school doesn't want writing, then you don't have to take it. Some basic rules for taking the ACT. You should definitely ahead of time prepare and have every single instruction for all of the sections memorized, so that once the clock starts ticking, you don't have to read through it again. Just know what you're doing. You should definitely use your test booklet as scratch paper, write in it, scribble in it, do whatever you need to. Don't try to remember and figure out everything in your head. One key strategy is to answer all of the easy questions before the hard ones, because the more questions you get right, the higher your score will be. So getting the easy ones out of the way will potentially increase your score. So leave the hard ones towards the end, and skip them if you need to. If you get stuck on them, just go to the easy ones. Like I said, don't get stuck on a hard question. If you need to move on, and don't waste your time. Always be careful, especially when bubbling in, because if you mess up the order of bubbling in, that can definitely mess up your score unintentionally. You may get all the right answers, but if you don't bubble them in correctly, it won't matter. When you don't know the answer to something and you've tried to work it out, just guess, because there is no penalty for guessing in the ACT. So the goal is at the end of the test, make sure everything is filled in, do not leave anything blank. Some tips for the day of the exam or the ACT test: always bring extra pencils. They must be number 2 pencils. They can be mechanical or the regular pencils as long as they're number 2. Bring extra erasers, and when you bubble in something and need to erase it, make sure you're always erasing completely, because that can mess up the reading of the Scantron and lead to inaccurate scoring. Make sure you bring a watch so that you can keep track of the time, because sometimes we can get stuck on a question and lose a lot of time and then be pressed for time. So make sure you're watching the clock and you know how much time you have. Don't second guess yourself. If you pick an answer and then you start second guessing yourself, unless you have a perfectly good reason as to why that answer is not correct. Just stick with your gut. Stick with the initial answer. Don't study the night before the test. I would say just review your strategies and tips. Review how you're going to approach every single section, but don't do any extra studying or memorizing of anything else besides your strategies. The day of the exam, make sure you eat breakfast because nutrition is important, and bring a snack and water because you will have breaks after every section. You have, I think, 10 to 15-minute breaks, so make sure you have something to eat. Come prepared on test day. Bring your admission ticket, which you will get once you register online. It will be emailed to you, I believe, and you can print it out. Bring a photo ID, such as a driver's license, pencils, erasers, and bring a calculator with extra batteries, because if your calculator dies in the middle of the math section, you are out of luck. And I recommend that you do not bring your phone, because if your phone accidentally rings or something happens, you will get kicked out and your test will not have mattered, even if you are almost finished. So just be careful with the phone and electronics. If you are interested in, if you know what schools you're particularly interested in, go to this website, bigfuture.collegeboard.org, and you can look at what kind of ACT score ranges they're looking at, as well as SAT and other test scores, and that'll help you know whether you need to take the writing test and what range you need to be in order to be able to get into that school. And these are some Midwestern colleges and universities, but Big Future has every single school you can think of. And now we have some resources I have used in the past. I definitely recommend SparkNotes. They have a lot of test prep strategies. ACTstudent.org, that has also practice problems. ACT Princeton Review and Kaplan ACT Review, those are really good. They're books, as you can see. The Princeton Review is my favorite book resource to go to. It has a lot of review, it has a lot of strategies, tips, it's very methodical, and at the end it has 2 to 3 practice exams, so the more practice you do, the better you'll get at it. And don't forget to look up what you're aiming for, set a goal, and work towards that.